This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
We know you have a lot on your holiday to-do list. And at the UPS Store, we're here to help. With our pack and ship guarantee, your gifts will arrive intact or you'll be reimbursed. Got holiday cards to print? We're also the premier printing store. We've got everything you need for every way you holiday. Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today.
Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
Good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday, so it must be the Tuesday show with Jake and Steve here on the Misfit Nation. I'm Steve. This is Jake.
Good evening, Steve.
Stopped you there. Look at that.
Thanks for the introduction. How you doing this evening?
I'm good. And you?
I'm doing well. Hey, I got a couple announcements to make before we get started. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to the show. Like and subscribe. Second of all, I would want to wish congratulations to the 21st engineers of the 101st Airborne Division. They won the best sapper competition, not once, but twice. They won it 2 years in a row, back to back. They brought the trophy back home to Fort Campbell. So that is great for the 21st Engineers and the 101st Division. Also, want to wish luck to all the EOD teams that are getting ready to compete for the All Army EOD Team of the Year competition that's fixing to come up. Wish them all luck and give a shout out to my son. I just saw him pop up on here. So good evening, Tyler. Tonight's guest, Eric Herrera, Courage Under Fire. Great story he's going to tell to us. He was a combat engineer and spent some time in Iraq. And his story starts out like just about all of us in the military. Some key thing makes us join. And we join. We start out to the bottom and we start working our way up. And I'm not going to really go into a bunch of his story. I'm going to let him tell it because he knows it better than I do. So without any further ado, Mr. Eric Herrera. Good evening, Eric.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, I gave about a nickel tour of good evening, Eric. Of what you did when you was in the military. Why don't you go ahead and give us the other 95 cents and just start wherever you want to, and from then to now.
Yeah, so 2005, I ended up going into college. Didn't participate in college, so I ended up getting kicked out and had to find my own way, so I decided to join the Army. So I was 21 Bravo, decided to join Combat Engineers. But the description for Combat Engineer kind of changed during the time when I came in. So it's just was kind of a 180 on what we had to do for mission as combat engineers. Ended up doing my basic training at Fort Lost in the Woods. So and then ended up going into Germany. I spent about 3 years there and then 2 tours in Iraq while I was there from 2005 2010.
Okay. All right. You wrote a book.
Yeah.
Well, what? Tell us about your experiences and what led you to finally say, "Hey, I have to tell somebody my story and let everybody know what happened out there."
Yeah, as I said, I came back in 2010, and I kind of had a plan to get back into the world, so to say, but a lot of my plans fell through because I had a lot of hearing loss. So I couldn't get certain jobs. So I was kind of like at a crossroads, like, I'm really not going to go back in. So I got to find something to do. So I did a few odd jobs and everything, but there was nothing that I really wanted to stick with. And so I decided I need to go back to school. So I decided to use my GI Bill. I went back to school, got my degree in business administration. But during that time, I was still not in a good place. I was still thinking about what was going on, what I went through. It was a lot of like that boggled up. I was just keeping it in. I mean, people didn't know exactly what we did. I just gave them like a brief synopsis of what we would do and what we would do on mission, but I never told them the different stories that happened or what happened to us. So for years, I just kept that in, and which kind of led to like a lot of drinking. Almost every single day, it was just me in my basement. I watched games or I had people over, but it was just constant drinking. And that was going on for almost about 9 years until 2019. I just had my breakdown in my kitchen and just let out every single emotion that I had, what I was feeling, what I was doing, to the point where my like throat was absolutely burning. I couldn't even speak anymore. It was just, I had to get it out. And for about a month, I felt a lot better just being able to get that out. And I talked with a bunch of guys and, I said, you know what, I want to get some of my thoughts on paper. Certain things happened while we were over there. We lost a few guys. I wanted to kind of tell that story of what happened. And as I was doing that, I was contacting a lot of the family members of the guys that we lost. And they were telling me what their experience was of getting the information from the Army. And some of that didn't sit right with me. So I decided I'm just going to tell what actually happened. I just started doing videos on telling what was going on, but I felt like I didn't have quite the platform to start telling people about that. So I decided I would write. So I wrote all the stories, but as I was writing the stories, I was feeling much better. Like the emotions I was having were going onto the page, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to keep going. I kept writing more stories. And then I got to a point where, well, I'm just going to start from the beginning all the way to the end. And at this time, COVID was going on. So I kind of had a little extra spare time and just kept on writing. I was telling certain guys what I was doing, and they were telling me, well, go ahead, do it. Put this story in, put that story in. And so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do it. I left all my raw emotion on paper, and then only a few people knew I was going to publish it. Only the guys that I requested their names to be put into it or different stories that they had. And I published it in July of 2020. And it got a big response from my community as well. But at the same time, a lot of people that I knew but like never spoken to in my life in the military started coming out of the woodwork too. So I knew I was ruffling some feathers, but at that time I really didn't care.
Yeah.
It was more like, well, if you're gonna ruffle feathers, come at me, because I know you're gonna have some explaining to do as well, and I know you don't want to. So I really didn't care. I know I lost some friends along the way as that was going on, but it was more for my mental health to get that out on paper. Shortly after that, I quit drinking. I rarely drink now. The only time I ever drink is if I'm at like a family party. I might have one or two, but drinking is not in my life anymore.
All right.
I don't have the nightmares that I used to have anymore. But I mean, it's been 4 years since that happened, but I still, you still get those quirks and everything like that you're still working on. But that's pretty much how I just ended up being here.
Yeah. Hey, we got a question here. Actually, a bunch of questions, but it's basically all the same. What units were you with in Germany and Iraq?
I was part of the 9th Engineer Battalion out of Schweinfurt, Germany.
Okay.
That's where we originally were from. By my second deployment, they reflagged us because we used to be 1st Infantry Division. They reflagged us to 172nd. And they were trying to move the brigade to Grafenwehr, which is actually the main hub for all the training.
Yeah.
After my second deployment, they were officially going to move everybody there. But by that I already left. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you told us why you wrote the book, and tell us a little bit about, what did you do while you were deployed?
Yeah, so when I originally signed up, the description for combat engineer was clearing minefields and building fortifications. Well, that was kind of thrown out the window when the Iraq War started happening. Since we knew explosives, they decided that we would be tasked for route clearance. Since we knew what to look for,
Mm-hmm.
IEDs or any type of bomb making that is out there. We were the guys out there going 5 miles an hour down the road, looking for these IEDs. My first deployment was in Baghdad. That was for 15 months. And then my second deployment was in a small town called Hilla, which is about an hour and a half south of Baghdad.
Mm-hmm.
Tom had all of his mass graves. And so we did that for my second deployment for about 12 months.
All right. I can talk route clearance a little bit. I did a 15-month tour of route clearance myself in Taji and Warhorse in Diyala province. So, it's not something fun.
A lot of deep buried IEDs.
Yeah, we did. Had, got hit by a few of them too. But, just take us through some, tell us some of the stories that's in the book. This is your time. This is why we're here.
Yes.
To hear your story.
So we would go, like I said, we'd go 5 miles an hour down the road. It'd be between like 8-10 hour missions, depending on what we found. And you always kind of recognized us because we always had specific vehicles. We had like RG-31s. We had the Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys know what that is. I actually have like a small model of it right here. So,
go ahead and show everybody. Yep, that's a Buffalo.
So, but it was 3 missions a day. So 3 platoons, 1 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
in the afternoon, 1 at night, and we rotate every 2 weeks. So it'd be 6 days a week. Depending on guys that are on R&R, you probably never had a day off. But as the time was going on, we did lose some guys that passed into injury. So like the numbers like dwindled. So it got to a point where there was literally no days off. My first deployment, our brigade found 126 IEDs in 15 months. That's not including the ones that blew up on us or the fake ones.
Yeah.
Me and myself, I've been blown up about 2-3 times, but I know a couple guys like 4 or 5 times. But it was just that. It just kind of became like the norm to it, where it happened. We talk about it, we kind of laugh it off, but that was kind of our coping mechanism. Just to get to the next mission, we had to laugh it off. Otherwise, some guys would you dwell on it too much. So you had to get back out there and do it again.
I understand. We got a question from Ezekiel coming through us on X. Why did you choose to be a 12 Bravo, and do you wish you'd have done something else?
As I said, it said building fortifications was a description. I like building things. I think we maybe only done that for like 2 weeks out of the 2 deployments I actually had. So, the description completely changed. That's what I thought I was doing, but we really didn't have no say in it. That was our mission. What I wish I would have done. I ended up in Kuwait during the pre-deployment, bringing our vehicles over, and a bunch of National Guard from Hawaii, and they said all they do was guard the port in Kuwait. And I said, I wish I would have done that. I should have joined the Coast Guard.
I don't think Coast Guard gets blown up as much as a 12B does.
Is it 12B now? Because it keeps changing back and forth.
Yeah, it's a 12. Yeah, Combat Engineers 12 Bravo.
Oh, it was 21 Bravo when I was in.
But yeah, and they're still doing good things, and they've kind of switched now. They're not so much IED hunters now. They're obstacles. They're going back to their traditional, putting in obstacles, breaching obstacles. Worked with a unit here not too long ago, did a wet gap crossing. So work with some bridge folks. So yeah, they're kind of falling into the more traditional engineer roles.
Yeah, I've heard lately that there's not a lot of engineer battalions anymore. They're all fixed to infantry units now. So that was a big thing that was happening when I left.
Yeah. Each infantry brigade has like an engineer battalion, and there's like 2 companies of engineers per brigade, but they're restructuring again. So who knows how that's going to end up. You got a particular story in your book that you like, that you want to tell us?
I could either tell the story about the first time I got blown up or the first time I almost actually got blown up. I'll tell you mine when the first time I got blown up. It's a little
okay.
So that night was the Super Bowl, Bears versus the Colts, and we were on night mission. And I thought, I'm like, hey, this is going to be great because we're already like 8 hours ahead. By the time we're done with mission, we'll be able to come back and see the Super Bowl. A couple minutes, like maybe about 30 minutes into mission, we got hit by an IED and blew out 3 of the tires on the RG-31. As we were calling in, we're like, we can't continue mission. I mean, the wheels on 3 wheels are blown out. We got to come back. Well, at this time, we had a two blown up rule. So if you got blown up twice on one mission, then you were able to come back and end mission. But they said, no, you have to come back. You have to tow the vehicle back. You have to go back out. And we're
wow.
We're like, oh my God, we really don't have nothing right now that could tow us out. We like have someone come out. They're like, nope, you got to tow yourself. So luckily we kind of had Huskies with us. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's supposed to be a mine-sweeping vehicle, but it was able to tow the RG-31. So it ended up towing us back. We got back on the fob, and in the RG we have it's a 4-man vehicle. At that time, I was just operating the Blue Force tracker for my LT, and Buddy Wee says, hey, we don't have any more RGs. We only have a Humvee. You really don't need to be on mission. You can stay here if you want. And I was thinking, well, if I stay here, I could watch the Super Bowl. But at that time, I was thinking in my head, is like, if I don't go back out, I'm not going to be able to go back out the next time. So I kind of had to psych myself out. So I said, hey, I'll go ride in the Buffalo. They got seats up there. They always need somebody. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. We're riding the Buffalo. So we end up going out another 2 hours. We end up going down this road that's called Rat, and nothing but trash in the middle of the road. It's tired, rubbered out tires, like 5-6 stacked high, just complete trash. We come across this big, huge like shopping bag. As combat engineers, when you're going down these roads, you kind of memorize the trash. So if something is out of place, it's most likely it's something 9 times out of. So we picked up this trash bag with the buffalo arm. I'm looking out the window. As we flip the trash bag over, it's like 2 88mm rounds strapped together, and it falls out of the bag and ends up in the median. Me already being like all messed up in the heads, getting blown up earlier, I literally jumped out of my seat and ran to the back of the Buffalo, like not knowing where I was going. and they told me, like, where are you going? They're like, you guys stay in here. It's like, I don't know. My first reflex was just to run because after, but calm down a little bit. What was so funny is that attached to it was was a flip cell phone, and it had like some dude's business card on it. So we ended up having to take pictures of that, everything like that. We can't blow in place because they need the EOD guys to come out, and that takes where we were at. That takes about an hour because they got to get the field artillery guys to get the EOD guys, and they escort them out, and that takes about an hour to get in place. It takes about another couple hours, and as we're going, the Super Bowl's already happening. So one of the guys that was at the talk knew me, and another guy were from Chicago, so he was giving us the scores while we're on mission on the Blue Force tracker. And we're like, come on, we got to keep going. And we only had maybe a couple more miles left to go. Finally get back to base. I think I saw like the last 3 minutes of the game, but by that time, the Bears were already getting blown out by the Colts at that time. So
Yeah.
something, but yeah, that's my funny Super Bowl story from Chicago.
So what year was that again?
That was in 07.
Oh, okay. That would have been right after I left Baghdad. I was there 05, 06, and then came back to the States for a month, went back, finished out 06, and then came back to the States and then went with my unit on the surge. So I'd already been up in Taji by then, but I worked Baghdad my first 2 tours, and yeah, I was glad to get out of there.
Yeah, I think we were already in halfway through when the surge was coming in. The only bad thing about the surge was the chow hall. That the line for the chow hall was even longer.
Yeah, yes, it was. So, what all you doing now?
Right now, I'm probably the farthest way of finding IEDs as possible. I'm a property manager now. But a lot of the things that I've taken from the military, I bring it into the work. I mean, it's just talking with people, being able to just communicate, build relationships, just build a community as well. It's helped out a lot. So, I mean, that's what I've been doing for the past like 7 years, or no, probably the past 7 years I've been doing that. So, I mean, I enjoy it. Keeps me out of danger and is a more peaceful life.
Nice. You got a copy of your book with you?
I do not at the moment, no.
Okay, well, tell everybody the name of your book. I'm getting all kind of messages here. Hey, what's the name of his book?
It's called The Bomb Hunter Story: My Life Clearing the Roads of Iraq. It is on Amazon, on Kindle and paperback.
Okay, everybody got that. It's The Bomb Hunter Story, and it's probably guaranteed to be a good read. Encourage y'all to take a look at it.
We had another question come in from IMHL. Do you think sappers are fully equipped for the Bomb Titan Theater?
When I went in, no, they weren't. That was some of the things I talked about in my book. We were getting a lot of shorthanded, like secondhand stuff. I say this every single time. The most praise and like the unsung heroes of our deployment were the mechanics. I mean, they could take 100% blown out vehicle, turn it around in 24 hours, and it's back out on mission.
Wow.
We couldn't have done it without them. These guys work like day and night. Anything that we needed, if we needed extra lights for the vehicles, even if there would be sometimes on mission, the alternator would go out because it couldn't take all the lights that were going on. They found ways to make the vehicles work for us. And we just had to improvise and adapt to even the enemy on what they were doing, which kind of made it more tough. Since we were such a new, like route clearance was like a new thing at that time, was a lot of learning. And by the time our second deployment, we knew what we needed. We requested a lot of things, but yeah, at the time, yeah, sappers were really under-equipped.
Yeah.
And everything that they wanted to try, anything new that they wanted to try, they always tried it out on the route clearance platoons first, like the big blowers that went on the front of the Huskies and the Buffaloes, and yeah.
Yeah, we had those like giant like rollers on the front. The only thing good for were like killing the hedgehogs that ran across the road. I mean, that's the only thing that they were used for. They really
yeah. And we got another question here from Tyler Collins. He's thanking you, Eric, for your service, and he's just wondering if you're doing better physically and mentally now that you've wrote your book and you've kind of settled into civilian life.
Yeah, mentally a lot better. Funny thing is that my family purchased an M998 Humvee a couple of years ago. We just did it for, just to drive it around, have fun with it. We took it to a lot of car shows. But what we didn't realize when we were bringing them to the car shows, we ran into a lot of vets. A lot of vets were coming up to us. Iraq, even Vietnam vets were coming up and just all of a sudden opening up to us. And then I kind of realized what we were doing. Like just some random person coming up to me, telling me their story for like maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And all of a sudden they're just like feeling 100% better. It was just something that we didn't realize what we were doing. So then we just kept going to more and more car shows. I even remember one young man, he was like in his mid-20s. He was there with his uncle. They were both mechanics, and he was showing his uncle this is what he worked on. And for like an hour, they were walking around the vehicle. They were even under the vehicle, showing his dad what's the difference between a civilian vehicle, military vehicle, from diesel to regular. And they were just having a good old time. I mean, just be able to have them have that bond and be able to support that and give that to them was worth more than anything in the world. And that's why we kept bringing it to car shows for the last couple of years, just to help some veterans that do come out. And it's good to give back.
Well, you ever think? Obviously, just listening to you speak, once you started writing the book, the weight was pulled off of you. You were able to express yourself and get it out of your system, and that's what you keep it bottled up. So the same thing with the Humvee. People are seeing it. They putting one and one together, and now you're all telling stories, and it's all like one giant relief, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing I could give advice for vets is like find that thing that helps you, find that gets your mind off everything. I mean, I tried that for a while. I kept marine fish for a long time, for about 5 years. That was my thing to keep my mind off the military. I built my own fish tanks. It was just something to occupy my mind. After a while, that didn't help, and that's when I finally wrote my book. And no matter how long it takes, I mean, no one's perfect. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, it's been 4 years for me, and I'm still healing and trying to better myself. And I mean, it takes time. You just can't.
It's not something you just snap your fingers and it's gone. You need to work through it. Yeah, definitely. Yep. Now, you were saying when you wrote the book, people that you never spoke to were saying things. What did the actual government say, or did anybody ever contact you about things you wrote about in the book? Did they say you shouldn't have done that, or
not government?
Say that to you? No,
not government. It was more like higher ups that were in my battalion.
Okay.
Like I knew who these people were. Never heard of the word to them in my life. At the time, one of my battalion commanders, he passed away from cancer like right before I published the book. I wish he would have been alive when I first did it, but I mean, you can't get everything you want. But it's just, I keep a lot of their names out, but most of the people know who they are.
Yeah. Got another question here from Jen on Twitch. Did you ever want to go to sapper school?
I did. So after my first deployment, My my platoon leader, he was a sapper instructor, came to Germany. I guess he wanted to go back to a line platoon. I don't know, but he was there for a number of years. He told me about it, like prepped me for it. I wanted to go, but at the time, my mind was back and forth on if I wanted to stay in the Army or not.
Yeah.
I just was like, you know what? I went through the training with him, like for PT in the morning and everything like that. I wanted to do it, but I was like, no, my mind's somewhere else right now. I appreciated his time. I still talk to him now, but I mean, yeah, I did want to go. I have one buddy who passed. He went as a specialist, and he passed. It was
Good
really
deal.
impressive. But yeah,
good deal. Now, I was going to mention something. You talked about taking your Humvee to the shows, and veterans come up and talk to you and tell you their stories. You ever think about writing those down and writing another book of other veteran stories?
Yeah, a lot of stories I did keep out of my first book because I still have a lot of friends that are in higher ranks now. And I already put their names down in the book previously, and I never didn't want to write stories that might hurt them or hurt their career or put a bad name to them. But after maybe everyone is gone, I probably will find all those stories back together and do one more, but I'm not sure when I'm going to do that. Everyone out, so.
All right. Hey, I need to make an announcement here. I don't know if you've been watching on our feed across the bottom. We've had some officers. We had investigator John Hampton Cadeau from the Harris County, Texas. He passed away on the 23rd. That was his end of watch. And Jordan Wingate, Oakland PD in California, passed away on the 20th. That was his end of watch. We just want to send out heartfelt condolences to their families and thank them for the service that they provided and serving their communities.
All right, and from George on X, you did a complete 180 turn from combat engineer to property manager. Did this help in your healing, and do you miss the rush of the rock clearing?
Well, I got into property management. Funny thing is you work on deals for like maybe 3 or 4 months, and then like deals fall through, and everyone's just like, oh well. I'm like, really? I'm like, we just spent all this money trying to get this deal done. I'm surprised more people don't get shot in this business, because it's just like, really, you just wanted. I don't know. It still baffles me on some of the things that people are just willing to throw money around and just say, oh, what the hell with it. But it's just, yeah, that 180 kind of was a little bit of something I had to get used to. As for missing the thrill, I think I get this question the most. I think the most veterans actually do miss is the camaraderie. It's not the thrill of what you did. I've known a lot of guys that are like, you know what, I want to go back. They go back and then they realize, oh, this is why I left. And they have to get to know new people. It was more the camaraderie, the best friends, just being willing to go through it with each other. That's probably what I miss the most. But I'm fortunate for technology now. We're able to talk like this. So it's easier to talk with a lot of my friends that are across the country that are out, and being able to be in their lives and still seeing how they're doing.
Okay, now initially your family was shocked that you were going into the Army. What did they think when they read your book? What was their reaction?
My father, he had to read it a couple times because he wasn't sure if it was real or not. My mother didn't read it she held off on reading it for a very long time because she did not want to know what I actually went through. She finally did, and she was just kind of in shock because the whole deal of it was me going in was the conversation I had with her, because she even tried to prevent me from joining. She even tried to go to the recruiting station saying, hey, he can't join because he's an only child. I'm like, well, that rule's not in place anymore. There's nothing you can do about it. So she was really distraught when that happened. And then when she found out the things that I actually went through, she understood. A lot of family kind of came to me and were like, it wasn't like, was it like sympathy or anything like that? They just kind of realized why I acted the way I acted with certain things. So they had a better understanding of where I was coming from and what I was doing. But yeah, it's just a lot of the friends were more shocked. I would, even though I would communicate with them every now and again, but yeah, it's finding out people actually do this job is kind of out of the ordinary. I didn't realize that until I actually left the military and was telling random people what I did, and they were just more like, "Are you nuts?" And not, I think.
The answer is yes.
So, but we always thought to ourselves, I mean, you're young, what, 18, 19, 20, you think you're indestructible. So it's kind of like, oh, well, it's another job. And not until you realize when you get older, like, what the hell was I thinking? You know?
Right.
Exactly. Eric, first of all, I commend you for having the courage to write a book. I have toyed with that, and I still not pulled the trigger on it. So I commend you for that courage. And we got another question from Dragon Zone. You had the opportunity to see great humans in your service. Who are your top 3 leaders or mentors in your life?
The first one is my uncle. He was, before I made my decision to join the military, I went to him. He was a Chicago cop for over 25 years. I never spoke to the man because he always worked the night shift.
Mm-hmm.
I never spoke to him until I was 19 years old and making this decision. Finding out he was a combat engineer in Vietnam. And he told me about his experience, what to expect. And ever since then, every time I would come back home, he was the guy I would go to for advice, for leadership, to tell my experiences, what were going on. Other mentors, I did have a few in the military. Another one, he's still in. He's a sergeant major, our command sergeant major out in Korea right now. He's from Chicago. I've known him since basic training. And just getting advice from him, he helped me out during a lot of times I was struggling while I was in. He gave me second chances, brought me in, gave me advice. Indebted to that, because before my second deployment, as I was saying, I was going back and forth if I was going to leave or not. A lot of people found out that I might be leaving, so I kind of got dragged through the dirt a little bit. He stepped up with a couple of the other leaders and gave me a second chance. And my second deployment, I gave my all because of them. He's another one. But yeah, unfortunately, my uncle passed away right before the shutdown. So he was not allowed. He never saw me write my book. I wish he would have read it. I pay a lot of homage to him in it. Come to find out, I talked with my aunt about it, his wife, and he's like, he actually wrote a book too. And I'm like, really? And he's like, well, he didn't actually publish it, but I encouraged him to write his experience. And he wrote it down, and I was able to read it.
Cool.
It's like, wow. It's, unfortunately passed away right as the shutdown was happening. I miss him every day because he literally changed my life. I owe a lot to him.
I completely understand that. Got another question from B6. Are you a member of the Sapper Association? And if not, why?
No, I'm not. I'm not quite sure what that is.
But I would suggest you look it up. I think it's an association for combat engineers, and just like any other social group, there's people in it that you can reach out to, that's going to have the same similar story as yours. And, they've probably got resources if you ever need them as well.
I appreciate it. I'll look that up. Yeah.
And then again, from Tyler Collins, I think everyone should tell as much as they can so maybe the public can understand a little better and put the action faces together, not a Hollywood script. Thank you again, Stephen, Jake, and Eric. Thank you, Tyler, for that. Well, Eric, you got anything else?
Yeah, as I said, I self-published the book, so no one has touched my words except me.
Okay.
I leave every raw emotion, every detail, every feeling that I had during different times as I was going through. So it can get a little bit real, but there are funny stories. I didn't want nobody to touch my story. I wanted to tell the raw emotion, what we all actually go through. I mean, as I say, it's like my story is a small chapter in a bigger book. Everyone else has got their stories and their experiences, and this is just my experience.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And Stephen, you got anything else?
No, I'm good. I appreciate you being here, and I also am very happy with the fact that writing that book has helped you so much, because you didn't wind up another statistic, and we're trying to do away with that and get people help and working with people. And I think this is great that the book helped you and that you're still here and you're pushing forward.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you for having me, guys.
Well, Eric, we are going to go into the outro right now. If you don't mind, just kind of hang around the green room a minute, have a little bit of chat after the show. And again, I want to remind everybody on all platforms to like and subscribe. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
On the Misfit Nation. Love y'all.
Good night.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.